This is Idiot with a Library Card, a podcast about books mostly, but also libraries. And libraries have all sorts of things like movies, TV shows, have computers for internet. But today I'm actually going to talk about something everyone is interested in. Library fine policies. So recently, I was just perusing online, looking for some stories about libraries. I figured it would be fun to do a little series of library stories. I did one about a very controversial topic, was the drag queen story time. This one's going to be about library fines, which sounds a lot less sexy, a lot less fun, a lot less controversial. No drag queens in this one. No Christians protesting this one either. But it is an interesting topic in that it sort of does show I would say, political divide. Most of the libraries that had this issue seem to be in more liberal parts of the country, bigger cities. Oakland was a big one, where it has some of the writing about it has a taste of restorative justice type issues, but it is interesting, and I'll get to the divide in a minute. Let me explain the issue first. There are some libraries now that are not fining for late books. Not fining at all. Now, if you destroy or lose a book, they'll charge you for the book. But they're not fining for late books. No fines at all. And the fines that people currently owed on late books are being forgiven. And they say this will create more of a demand for the use of library. People dodge the library now, won't go into the library because they owe fines. I'm someone who is forgetful and scatterbrained. I've paid the library quite a few fines. It's probably up in if I added all my library fines up, it's probably no more than like $300, $350. I was trying to see if there was a running tab on my library's website. There is not. Some of these libraries, especially the bigger city system libraries, say that they're owed upwards of $10,000. That's all patrons fines together. So what they've decided to expand usage of the library is that they've now gotten rid of fines. Now it's convenient, and someone with kids actually was talking on one of the articles that I read about how they have 5 kids, they all want to take out a bunch of books, you missed that deadline for the library. You know, if it's 10 cents a book and you have 20 books out, I mean, that's, it's $2, and yeah, that's not a whole lot, but if you're not wealthy and if that expands over a week, then you start to get into some real money. But it's never that much money, or it shouldn't be. The other issue is that these libraries now will not let you take out another book without returning the material you would owe fine. So if you have something overdue, you can't go back in the library, check something out if it's overdue. I think returning library books late or not renewing them, because you get 3 weeks, and I think this is generally with every library. There must be some sort of library rule book. But generally speaking, with a book that's not new or marked special, you get 3 weeks with that book. Then you can renew it. Now, my library system is you can renew it 3 times. I've seen some library systems where you can renew it like you could own the book for a year and a half if you needed that book. That seems a little selfish to have I guess if it's a really long book, I understand it, but still a year and a half to have a book out of the library. Someone else might want to read that book. And that's the point with the fines, is to me the fines are a inconvenience for the other patrons of the library fee. I thought the book was going to come in the 5th, but you didn't bring it in until the 8th. You owe 30 cents for inconveniencing someone else who wanted to check out that book. Even if it's not known that they did want to check out that book. Maybe they did, and they were just waiting for it. So that's part of it. Also, libraries make a lot of their budget up from these late fees. And this is another thing I kind of like about it. if you borrow from the library regularly, you're gonna owe fine. It just happens. Like, you just forget to renew the book, or you forget to return it. And it's sort of just a fee, a small fee for using the library. And I know it's supposed to be a free library, and if you're a good little boy or a good little girl, you don't have to pay those fines. But generally speaking, people like me forget a lot and have to pay fines. And, it's if I owe 5 cents and don't have a nickel in my pocket, it's not like they won't let me check it out. Usually it's a $10 minimum, or maximum, I should say. If you owe more than $10, they won't let you check out another book. But if you owe less than $10, so nothing to $9.99, they still will let you check out material, which seems fair to me. $10 is about where you need to pony up. But the fineless libraries now, they want to wipe all that out. They still have due dates, which I find interesting. I understand it, because the due date is so you're not stealing the book and never returning it, and then constantly just checking out other material. You have to return whatever it is within that time, and if you're overdue, you can't check anything else out. The one problem I have, and actually what I like about the free libraries and what they're suggesting, is the renewal process. Now, this is the other problem with the fineless library. At this moment in history, almost all libraries connect to you via the web. You get emails telling you, hey, your book's due in 3 days. You get emails saying that you are able to renew it online. I know some people don't have access to computers, but that number of people is shrinking pretty regularly. And actually, if you don't have access to a computer, you're probably at the library a lot more than other people, I would assume, just because computers are such vital parts of our lives, and you need to be on it. So where's a free computer? Oh, at the library. It's much easier to renew your material and to check it out and to see when everything's due. You're actually less inconvenienced. So being late on a book is more inexcusable. I said, actually, the Salman Rushdie book that I read, the Satanic Verses, I was late by about 2 weeks returning it because I had run out of renewals, and I was just having trouble analyzing the book. I had to reread a bunch of things in it, and so I knew I was going to pay the fine, and it's sort of me renting the book longer than I was allotted. And it actually made me feel less bad about holding the book longer than it was due. So with these fineless libraries, you can hold the book longer. I mean, I didn't have anything else to check out in the library, so that didn't stop me. And I actually think if you hold it longer than your renewals, you get 3 renewals, it generally adds up to about 9 weeks, which is 2 months and a week, generally speaking, that you can have material. And then actually there's a process in which you can come back and sort of just recheck the book out, which is what I could have done with Satanic Verses. I was just being lazy. It's an interesting back and forth, because I heard a lot of people who were pro-fineless libraries, and I read a ton of articles. I just Google libraries getting rid of fines, or actually if you just Google library in the news, it really is it really is the first thing that will pop up, because it seems like a bunch of different towns are trying it out, and it will make the newspaper. The library generally doesn't make the newspaper a lot, and this is something that I think some people find some interest in. And the library is trying to get the story out, because they want people who owe fines to say, hey, come back to the library, be used. And this is part of sort of I love issues that aren't contentious, but sort of show a general conservative and general liberal attitude towards things, in which a conservative would be like, no, I think everyone should pay their fines, because the fines sort of keep the library system honest, where a liberal person is more concerned not about justice, but about the library being utilized. That's what the library's there. I find both arguments pretty compelling. I generally am for library fines. I know they help pay the library, and the more money the library gets, the better it works. I love libraries. I think, I'm a small government guy. One of the few things I think the government does really well is libraries. Libraries are great. They tend to stay out of political matters. You can get a Noam Chomsky book, and you can get a Thomas Sowell book on that sort of academic side, but you can get a book by like Sean Hannity, and you get a book by Rachel Maddow. I mean, they don't play favorites. They're really good about just stocking the library with books people want to read, and some books that only a few people want to read, but man, they're there. I love libraries. This is why I'm an idiot with a library card. It's just such a great free resource in which the world's knowledge is in one library. I have a small library, and the amount of knowledge and history and fiction in this small library is staggering. I could not read all the books in the small Conshohocken library, let alone the big county seat library in Norristown. I didn't have prerequisites going into this show. I didn't have many notes because I just sort of wanted to talk out this issue. It's become a love letter to libraries, and I understand where the fine people come from, or the anti-fine people. We'll call them anti-fine and fine. The anti-fine people love libraries like I do, and they just want the people who have made mistakes to come back. Now, I think there's a fair middle ground here. I think there's some things both sides can sort of agree on. I'm okay with some sort of fine amnesty. I think you just need to, let's leave it up to the librarian's discretion. I know that seems like it could be corrupt, but like, how corrupt could a librarian forgiving fines be? I think that would be the halfway point, because some poor people can't pay the fines. Apparently, I don't know what kind of fine, like, I know people are struggling and every dollar counts for some people, but seriously, like, if you can't get together $10, I don't know what's going on. But some people can't, and I guess we want them to use the library even though maybe they've made some mistakes. I think there could be a fee forgiveness application or something stupid like that, and the librarian could be at their discretion. If it's like, oh, we went on vacation, we just completely forgot these books, and now we owe like $30, and I just can't pay it right now. I'm okay with working something out there. That to me is cool, and even maybe paying the fines in a different way. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it would be. I generally leave libraries to the discretion of librarians, because most librarians really love libraries, really love knowledge, and want to keep their library in good shape and want people to come. They want it to be an inviting place. So I think it would be better to not wholesale get rid of fines, but more make it that the librarian can have some sort of executive decision to forgive fines. Totally cool with that. I think that would probably be the better way to go than just completely forgiving fines, because I think sometimes you just need to pay up if you're late with returning your book. It's sort of your penance for inconveniencing someone else, even though maybe you didn't inconvenience someone else. It's the potential for inconvenience. The other thing I like is automatic renewal. This is where I get caught a lot with the fines, and it is a little annoying. I have to manually renew my books, and again, it's a 5-second procedure, but I'm an idiot, and I forget, and I am lazy sometimes, and I just don't do it. Generally, you get 3 weeks with your book, and then you can renew it 2 to 3 times. I think it's usually 2 times for a total of 9 weeks. Now, there's sort of 2 schools of thought here, is that they just extend it to like 10 weeks and just that's your due date. Like, you have 2 months with this book, no renewals. If you need it more than 2 months, call the librarian or go to the librarian and recheck it out, unless it's requested. And in a big library system now, you can have the same copy of a book at multiple libraries and get it from the same library. In that, if your local library has War and Peace and someone checked out War and Peace, they can go to a different library in the same system and get War and Peace for you. And then you both can have War and Peace and everyone's happy. But yeah, if no one has a hold on the book, then, you can come back and renew it. It's not a renewal. It's basically you just check it back in and check it back out immediately. And that's fine. So the one thing they were saying is that they would just automatically renew your book. If it was late the day it was renewed, they would just automatically renew it. You'd have 3 more weeks until the next 2 renewals, and then the fines start to build. I kind of like that idea. To me, I actually do like the idea of just like, here's your due date, extend it from 3 weeks. And I know maybe some people, and I can be like this too, maybe some people will not return a book sooner if the due date is longer. I'd love to see. It's probably something that would be really hard to research, but it interests me, the human nature aspect of it. But if you had instead of 3 weeks, you had 2 months, so it'd be 8 weeks. I would be totally cool with just, there's no renewals, 8 weeks it's due, and would people wait those 8 weeks even though they need it 2 weeks? Like if they finish the book in 2 weeks, would they return it? I mean, I generally do. I generally like to, you don't want a library book sitting around. That's how you lose them, is you just have it sitting around and you put it in your bookshelf, or it gets cleaned up somewhere and it's gone. I'd say I'm not a huge fan of the fine-free library. I don't know. It apparently cuts way into their budget. It might be, some libraries say it's a quarter of their budget that they collect from fines. Now you could say, oh, well, it's like a town that gets too much of its budget from traffic tickets. But I generally find that the library doesn't try to trick you. I'm not saying the police try to trick you, but the police will get pressure to write a certain amount of tickets because a city relies on those fines, where I don't know, if I've never had a library like try to backdoor me on a fine, or like give me the wrong date that things are due. They have some weird rules, especially with children's books. For example, for whatever reason, all children's books are 3 weeks, just like regular books, except for holiday books. And that's any holiday-themed book at any time of the year. If I get a Halloween book in July, it's 1 week. And that, to me, that actually has probably caused me the most fineage, is getting holiday books for my child and forgetting that this stupid rule is that they're 1 week. Now, every time the librarian has told me this book is due in a week because it's a holiday book, that's beside the point. So maybe getting rid of some stupid, bizarre rules like that, I would understand. I'm cool with getting rid of renewals too, and just having one date due. But I like library fines. I think they're important. I think there's a certain amount of justice in them, in library fines. But I'm also okay with a little bit of leeway, because we do want people to use our libraries. We want kids with, who might be forgetful and not have a lot of money, to still be able to go back to the library and check out books, even if they've made a few mistakes. So I'm okay with fine forgiveness. I would just like it to be formalized and not across the board. Because people who can pay library fines and they're the ones getting forgiven, no, pay your library fines. You held the book. You made the mistake. The library didn't trick you. You held the book too long. So that's my very interesting take on library fines. I've been thinking about it a lot. It's such an interesting back and forth with me. I generally don't like these, because the language of the people pushing for getting rid of fines and fine forgiveness, they used a lot of that SJW talk about restorative justice and social justice, and I'm kind of like, it's library fees, people. Like, calm down. It's not the Emancipation Proclamation. You've forgiven library fees. But as I thought about it and some of the ideas they had, I was really interested in it. And I think I understand where they're coming from. I don't love the policy completely, but I think a certain amount of fine forgiveness would be a good idea. Now, I'm sure some people will take advantage of that because people are jerks. If you can afford to pay your library fee, pay your library fee. If you can't, talk to your librarian. Maybe there's something you guys can work out. Get to know your librarians. It's great. Librarians are great people. I know almost all the librarians at my local library. They're all super terrific people, and they're really nice to talk to, really smart, really interesting. In conclusion, library fines are not a terrible thing. I think maybe there are some steps that libraries could take to reduce the overall technicalities that sometimes lead to library fines, like not renewing your book quick enough. And I would love to explore and see if I can find something about if you extend the due date with no renewals, will people hold on to books when they're done with them? I tend to think not, but maybe that's something that they study at library college. Because, library science is a college major. All right, well, thanks for listening.